What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Speedway Soccer. We're live tonight. I have got Chris Ivy with me, Jonathan Slape. A lot of big news today. Busy week for Nashville SC, busy week for MLS. A lot of CONCACAF Champions League stuff going on. We're going to kind of cover all of it tonight. I don't even visit the Chelsea stuff, but we are doing an episode on Chelsea's birthday. So welcome to the club, everybody. Chelsea fans and Chelsea haters alike, which are out in full force today, and rightfully so. So welcome in. Guys, I'm Davey Shepard. I'm going to be hosting tonight. We're down Ben Wright. No Lucas, no Will. But you got me, you got Slape, you got Chris. Producer Andy might make an appearance at some time. I'm going to show you a little present I got today, guys. My Nashville SC Geodude Park, Andy. Hard hat. Pretty stoked about that. There he is. There he is right there. No, look, I loved that. And guys, let's get right into that. Chris, your initial thoughts from seeing everything today at the stadium?
I mean, it looks great. The photos once again of the stadium look impeccable. I can't wait for all of us to experience it on May 1st. As far as the name, I mean, it certainly could have been worse. It's at least somebody, some company with a local tie to the Nashville area. So that's a check the box right there. And it's not one that embarrasses you. So that's all you can really ask for in a stadium deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about just going safe. It's not an MLM. It's not crypto or NFT related. And yeah, it
shout
has
out Valkyrie.
Ties. Yeah, shout out Valkyrie. But so I mean, I don't think there's much else you can ask for have a local company come in and be involved. Maybe it's definitely wasn't a company that I had on my radar. Like Davey and I have been talking about, who are the companies that even have the cash out there to be able to do that. But, still super exciting. Pictures look absolutely phenomenal. Even got some Davey snagged some videos from our seats too. So super excited for I know you said May 1st, but other news that came out through the through the Fair Board meeting is it looks like we're going to be able to get into that stadium a little bit earlier, not to watch a game, but there was a few things on the calendar for some season ticket holder events, a watch party on April 16th. So very excited about getting into that stadium.
Yeah, I tweeted that out yesterday. You can check it out there at Davey T. Shep. Also on Reddit, I think it was Matt610 was the guy who found it. So shout him out for doing the digging. I actually didn't do any of the lifting there. Back to the name, Geodis or whatever. I never heard of the company before. And actually, that was the CEO of Geodis America came up and spoke for a bit today. I was the only one of us who was able to attend. Me and Ben were both there. And the first thing that he said was, I know a lot of you have probably never heard of us before. And so I think they get that. And I think Tim from Club and Country said it best in a reply to a tweet earlier, like literally the reason why people pay for their name on the side of a stadium is to advertise. Is to make sure more people know the name of their stadium. So it's kind of the purpose is they think they're not well known enough and they want to be more well known. So they're going to do this. And so I thought that made really good sense from Tim. I think the logo looks cool. We haven't touched on it yet. I think Park sounds good. I don't think it sounds too like try hard or anything like that. I think it's got a good ring to it. I think we probably should have just assumed it was going to be that with it being Ian. Just something like that, just the more British sounding name. I really like it. I think it's got a good ring to it. I'm a big fan. I think it was a nice event today too. Sorry, still catching back up here.
I would say the third, because we have Subaru Park,
Providence Park.
Oh, and then I guess we have Children's Mercy. So 4.
Yeah, 4th park, right?
I believe Dallas at one point was a Pizza Hut park way back in the day.
They were Pizza Hut Park at one point, but are no more.
So just real quick, and we can kind of move through some other stuff. When I went there today, the first thing that really struck me was the section we came in on the corner. Like if you're familiar with the fairgrounds, been to the flea market or the fair and stuff like that, the main entrance off Wedgwood, you walk up that hill. That is where the corner, where the big inlet logo is that you've seen pictures of. I think that's the North Plaza where they plan to have some of these watch parties and stuff like that. That is the end of the supporter section. So you're kind of walking in on this corner. And the first thing that blew me away was the concourse is so wide on the goal ends. There's like so much space inside. And that's one thing I was just a little bit worried about because it is a tight little compact area that they've built this thing on. But it is a great, I'm telling you, man, I'm dying over here. It is a great looking concourse, nice and wide, plenty of room for everybody. The supporters are going to love it down there. And look, I'm telling you, I can't wait for people to get into this stadium, see what it's all about, and just have a good time. May 1st is going to be here. Tony said it today, 53 days away. That's so soon. We're going to be in there together having a good time. Very, very excited for that. We'll bring that to a close and head back into something different for the week, which was a 1-1 draw against Minnesota United. And look, I think let's start with this. Chris, I'll go to you. You're the big guy. Hey, get a point on the road. I think you predicted them at 7 points for the full road trip. After this one is played out, you're still happy with the point?
Yeah. I mean, outside of playing Cincinnati, Miami, Charlotte, there is no such thing as a bad road draw in MLS. It's a notoriously difficult league to pick up all 3 points. It was great that we did it in Seattle. Certainly with this game with Minnesota, the chances were there to pick up a win. You would have, of course, liked to see it, even if it came through, Hani penalty or what have you. But in the end, you can't be upset about 1 point in Minnesota. They stay on track. We've so far got 4 points from 2 matches. That's the same pace that you would want if you were a home team. So to have that off the road against, a good Seattle team, though they were, lineup rotating at least somewhat. But Minnesota, as inconsistent as they can be, they've got good talent. So anytime you can go up there and steal a point, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, they had, Minnesota had a second place in the league for home form. They had 13 wins at home at Allianz Arena last year. So, I mean, I think going on the road there is always a great point. I would push back and say I feel that there's a few other places you can go on the road in this league and get a point. I mean, get more than a point. And I think FC Dallas is, when we get into that, is another one that we'll talk about. As we start to preview the game for the week. But I mean, I think it's, really very good to come in 4 points through the first 2 games. You have 6 more games on the road. I predicted 12 to cut points to start off the road trip. So, I mean, I think Nashville's in a great position. I think maybe there's some disappointment about how that draw came about. But at the end of the day, it's a point on the road in less than ideal conditions.
Yeah, the less than ideal conditions is spot on. I think that was the big thing for me. The water, especially in the second half, holding on that one side of the field. We touched on that earlier this week in Nashville Soccer Show, me, Will, and Lucas. So I won't go too hard on it. But it was a bit of a mess out there by the end of the game. So, is what it is. I agree with you both. I think it's a good point. It's a good, talented team. I think you'd like to see the team secure that. You're up with the lead pretty late in the game. The big story is the Hani Mukhtar no penalty. I was very admittedly wrong. I thought it was a not a penalty in real time. To me, it just looked like a little bit of incidental contact. Maybe the ground got him. But on the replay, and this is the big thing I said, Slape, when you look at the other penalties or red cards or whatever that was given this weekend, that's got to get called, right? Yeah,
no, I would agree. It doesn't matter if it was accidental, because I know there's been a lot of, I've watched the penalty. I've read and I've seen people online talking about where, it's not a penalty because their legs just got tangled. It was an accident, blah, blah, blah. It's a foul anywhere else on the field. And if it is a foul anywhere else on the field, it's a penalty. It reminded me a lot of, not to go Liverpool here, but earlier this season, Diego Jota was not given a penalty. He was, running in on goal, had a guy behind him. And the reason it was said was that he initiated his contact, which, again, you guys talked on a Nashville Soccer Show about this, but you can't initiate. You have to slow down to shoot. And Hani was in the process of shooting. And so, of course, he's going to slow down. and as he's the guy in front, someone is going to run in the back of him. I mean, to me, the fact that the referee did not even go and look at it on the, like, I know the video assistant referee did not tell the referee too, but that blew my mind.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty bad. Just kind of in retrospect, like you said, not even taking a look. And we didn't hear the radio call because I think we were all watching on television. Chris, I know you were at the Charlotte game, so you might not have seen it at all. But Will mentioned it. Kelly Glendenning during the game, she said right away, just like a player of Hani Mukhtar's caliber being in on goal in that way and not even getting the shot off tells you all you need to know. Like, it was a penalty 100%. That's a very insightful statement right away. It proved to be totally true because it 100% was. But hey, look, at the end of the day, like we've said, it's a good result on the road. I don't think you can put too much in it. Chris, I saw two people talking about it today. I retweeted one, Brian Wilson, Manchester United fan. Great follow on Twitter. Check him out if you haven't. Then Chris Hull followed up, one of our faithful listeners, listens to everything, reads everything NSC related. Probably more informed than me. Not probably, definitely more informed than me. So
yeah, that's also.
I don't know why he asked me the question. I felt maybe he was trying to entrap me or something. So I'm just going to throw it to Chris here because Chris wrote the piece. They're both wanting to know about Sean Davis's performances so far this season and what he's been able to bring to the club. I know you wrote a little bit about that. Why don't you kind of just bring that into the show here so we can talk about the impact he's been able to have through 2 games?
Yeah, I think Sean Davis is one that it takes kind of a second viewing to appreciate what he's doing with Nashville so far. Watching a game live, you don't necessarily see it. I kind of equate him to, and I mentioned this in the article, a glue guy that you talk about in basketball, the guy who kind of makes the play that helps, a play 2 or 1 or 2 actions down the line and kind of brings the team together. So with Sean Davis, it's really much the same way. His ability in the press certainly helps Nashville. Getting that extra midfielder on the pitch has kind of pushed Nashville's line of confrontation a little further. And one of the things that I'd put in there was a stat from this year compared to last year that right now Nashville is 8th in the league for attacking pressures in the attacking third. They were just 22nd last year. So already through 2 games, despite those 2 games being on the road, you're seeing Nashville push further ahead and get pressure on opponents. And then it's not just that too. Sean Davis is making good passes. He had one kind of situation in the box where he pulled it back for Randall Leal, who got off a good shot. Unfortunately, it went a little wide, but he's finding himself in good spots to help this Nashville team, both offensive and defensively. And I think it's going to take some time for some people to appreciate, but if you sit down there and watch him, you'll kind of see what he's contributing to this team. I think we lost Davey.
Yeah, you're muted over there, Davey. So,
you take it from there, Slape.
So I'll take. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that he's provided a solidity to this team, but also allowed. He's freed up. I think we've seen Anibal Godoy provide a lot more on the offensive side, and that ability to get forward and like just his mobility as well. It's not to say that the midfield pairing of Dax McCarty and Anibal Godoy is immobile, but I think that Davis adds an extra level of ranginess and mobility that is just a huge help to this team, especially on the road. I mean, it's not the flashiest soccer that we've seen with this team, but I think that we saw even in especially the first half against Minnesota, when the game opens up, this team can play open with this setup. So, I mean, I think that's something to keep in mind is even as that was maybe more of a defensive formation, we did see a pretty open first half against Minnesota.
I said the other night on Nashville Soccer Show, to be clear, you guys can't hear me now, yes?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Perfect. I said the other night on Nashville Soccer Show, I think it's the most open half that I've seen this team play away. Definitely first half. I've never seen them kind of look like they're out there trying to score 3 or 4. I think it maybe could have been like 3-2 at the half. I think 1-0 was a really kind of generous scoreline for both teams. And it was just really, really interesting. So I think, the formation looks defensive on its face, but I think what you've seen through Sean Davis, those pressures that he's creating, and the freedom it's giving Anibal Godoy to get forward, who Slape, we talked about this the other day. I think between Leal and Godoy, those have been the two players of the season so far. I think between those two, Davis and Godoy, there's just a really, really good piece of chemistry. And we're seeing the best Dax McCarty, the best that we've seen him in a Nashville shirt. I know he maybe wasn't at the level he would have wanted to be for parts of last season. He's been tremendous through 2 games, so you can't really underrate what he's been able to do either. Moving along, guys, CJ Sapong gets on the score sheet for the first time this year. Wonderful goal. And 2 guys we just talked about. Godoy switches play, which is just really, really smart at that moment in time. Dax sees that ball over the top, which was just, as well done of a pass as we've seen this season, I think.
Jordan Henderson-esque.
Actually, that's a very, very good comparison. And, I'm a Hendo hater. But that was a nice little ball in. And then, look, Hani's ball, just a perfect goal. I think one of those team goals we'll talk about all season. It'll be up there for one of the goals of the season. Happens in minute 4, and you think, oh, wow, they're off to the races. We see Leal hit a post. We see Leal miss an open net. We see Moyle miss a open header. Plenty of chances for Nashville to go up a couple of goals. I know they missed a penalty call. I know the field was garbage. But you think Nashville has the chance to really put their mark on this game and put it out of reach. They weren't able to do that. 1-1 draw on the road. So, guys, I think we can all say the team is performing very well. They are at 4 points through 2 games on the road. That's ahead of schedule. Chris was the most pessimistic of the bunch. He had him at 7 points through the 8 games. Ben probably reasonable, had him at 9. I had him at 12, I know. So that's through those
12 as well.
There you go. So that's through those 8 road games. So they're more than on pace for the 12 that me and Slape posted. And a win against Dallas gets them to Chris's number at 7. So in really, really good shape. Now, my question for you guys is, if they're in such good shape and the performances have been as good as we're talking, and the results have been as good as we're talking, why so much griping on social media after the game about the sub selections, about the starting lineup, and about the $6.8 million man, Ake Loba, unable to get into the starting lineup, change of formation, unable to get into that formation right away, comes on, and I think the 85th minute this week. It was
88th.
The 88th he actually gets in the field. Last week it was the 89th that he got on the field. And, guys, I kind of made my statements known earlier in the week, so I want to open this up to you all. I'll kind of chime in last. Do you think – we say this as a joke all the time in the chat, SWBW, should we be worried? But should we be worried about Ake Loba? Should we be worried about his role in the team? Or is he just not finding room right now on a team that's performing really, really well? Chris, we'll start with you.
Should you be worried? No, for the exact same reasons that you said of the team is performing well. We're picking up points at a better pace than what should be expected. I think it goes back to the gripes are because people want to see the sexy stars, the high-priced DPs. They want to get them into the lineup. And admittedly, getting Loba integrated with this team probably helps it reach its ceiling. But when Nashville has as high of a floor that it does, it's hard to be that concerned. My whole thing with Loba has always been, if we want to pigeonhole him into, or at least if Gary wants to pigeonhole him into that Hani Mukhtar role, why not go out and buy, a number 9 traditional target forward that Gary would have played? But if that's what we're down to, it doesn't really matter so much as long as the team keeps picking up results. I think we can be a little bit more worried if they started to drop points, if they weren't scoring goals even on the road, then we would have a cause for concern. But for right now, it's nothing to be worried about.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the last part about, how Gary Smith has talked about how he sees him in the Hani role and such. But I think there's a reason to be worried because Nashville went out and they scouted this guy in year 1 and then didn't get him, continued to scout him. decided that he was the guy that we needed because very much we were told that he was a goal scoring forward and that is what we needed. And now we're at the point where, oh, he's not a fit right now because we see him in the Hani Mukhtar role. This team, and I know I'm going to echo a lot of things that Davey said on the Nashville Soccer Show, but I think it's a lot of come from discussions we've had. But like, if a team with limited resources is spending $6.8 million on a backup to a designated player that was one of the top 2 players in the league last year, it seems like a waste of resources, doesn't it? Because I mean, we only like that could have been used somewhere else. And so, I mean, I think it is the time that the team is playing well. It is good to be asking these questions because we've seen with CJ Sapong, he's a streaky player. He scored 2 goals the last 2 months of the season. So like, you can't say the guy's not in form if he's not getting opportunities. And I think he's played 12 minutes this season. How is he going to get in form? How is he going to gain chemistry with these players?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing for me, Slape, is and I think Tim and Wes brought that idea up on their show just a couple of days ago. I didn't get to see the whole episode yet, guys, so if you're out there, don't crucify me if I'm misplacing this. Braden tweeted out a piece from that show, which I think they had a super level-headed conversation, which is a testament to those 2 guys. They are much cooler heads than me and Slape. No way around that. I'll leave Chris out of it because Chris is a level-headed guy. But I think you're right. Like Tim's saying, hey, look, he's got to get that chemistry with the other guys out there. And I just don't know how he gets that chemistry when he's getting 5, 4, 3 minutes of game time with other forwards who are not starters. So it's a little bit chicken and egg, right? What comes first, the form or the minutes? And to me, when you've invested this much money in the guy, I think it's got to be the minutes. And so that being said, I'm not the manager. The team is performing well. I think Chris is right. I think no need to be worried is probably the right call. The lack of change in conversation, and Lucas, this is what Lucas said on the show, it worries me because the conversations we're having right now are the same exact conversations that we were having in July.
In August, in September.
Right. So that just is like, I don't know. It sits a little bit weird for me. And the other thing I said, and I kind of leave it with this, is this team, it's not Atlanta. It's not LA. It's not Seattle. The pockets just aren't the same. And so $7 million miss, if it is that, which I'm not willing to say it is yet, because I haven't seen enough to know if it's a miss. But if it is a miss, that's like a big issue, I think. $7 million is a lot of money. And when you've got a DP who is playing at an MVP level, who costs like 1.8 or 2, whatever Hani cost, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of tough to reconcile. So we know Mike Jacobs has had a lot of hits on low-budget guys. I think the value you get out of Hani Mukhtar at the price they paid for him is off the charts. Guys like Dave,
not only at the price point, but at the salary number too.
Absolutely. No, that's spot on. Alistair Johnson previously. Lovitz, Romney. Guys all up and down the roster. We can name them all day long. But you've got your Nazaretes. You've got your Rodrigo Pineros, and possibly your Ake Lobos too. So
your David Accoms too.
Your Accoms, your Jandro Cadizes. So look, I don't think you're picking something different at the end of the day. Teams made the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years in a row. Now they're in the West. They're performing well right away. They've beaten playoff teams right off the bat. I think there's a little bit of meat on the bone more than just straight don't worry. If I'm encouraging people one way or the other, I'd probably say don't worry. I'd probably say, hey, chill out. But if someone really wants to get into it, I would just say go ahead and get into it because I don't know. There's a little bit.
If you want to smash that panic button, smash that panic button.
I wouldn't say smash it, but just ease into it. Go ahead and press it if you want. I'm not saying do it, but if you're feeling it, I can't blame you too much. Is all I'm saying. Ake Lobo, we've beat that horse to death over the course of the week, but hey, look, here's what I think about it. It's going to be what it's going to be, and I think Ben and I think Will and I think Tim and all of those guys are right. I don't know that too much changes until May 1st when this team gets home for an extended period of time. That's just my gut feeling. But Minnesota was not the opponent this weekend. Aguiloba's on our team. The team this weekend, we're playing FC Dallas. Guys, life after Ricardo Pepi for FC Dallas. They bring in Ariola over the summer. Slape, what's the formation going to be like? Who's the player to look out for on that side of the field?
I mean, it's more than just like we see that, it's the post Ricardo Pepi life. It's also we're finally seeing Nico Estevez's really his vision for this team. So last year, Luchi Gonzalez gets let go. They bring in longtime U.S. men's national team assistant Nico Estevez to take over here. And you're going to see a lot of similarities to, a Berhalter system, a 4-3-3. They're going to have a little bit of a higher line of confrontation, reliance on the wingers. So, of course, Paul Ariola being the big signing moving into this season. Jesus Ferreira, who had a fantastic season last year, kind of playing as that secondary striker next to Ricardo Pepi, becomes the first homegrown player to be a DP. And so he's going to be really responsible for a lot of those goals and for linking play up together. We've seen what he's done with the national team a little bit. But I think coming into this game, it's going to be a chance to see Paxton Pomykal, who's been another U.S. Youth national team player who's dealt with some injuries last year, looks to be healthy, a great box-to-box guy who has the ability to both go forward and then also break up play. So I think it's going to be really interesting with what we see from Nashville. I assume we know from Gary that he loves to, once things are working, he doesn't like to deviate. We saw that with the 3-4-2-1 or 3-4-3, whatever you want to call that, last season. But we also saw him stick with that, and we've seen through 2 games, and it's albeit a small sample size, that he's put out that same like 4-3-1-2 kind of diamond formation. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something similar. Now, if we go back to Ake Loba, I think this is the game if you were going to start him, but I don't think he'll bench CJ Sapong. But this is a game I could see being for Ake Loba much earlier than the 88th minute.
Chris, formation-wise, we've heard Gary talk just a bit about the idea of Randall being able to play a little bit more centrally than he's done before, maybe more close to midfield. I know his DX has been really good, but we know how old he is. We know that he's in the later stages of his career. We got to manage him and Aniball's minutes both over the course of the season. Could this possibly be a match where you see Randall in one of those midfield spots and then Ake further up the field?
I think if you see Ake anywhere, it's if they go back to something that they kind of played with in preseason, where you kind of have a fluid front 3 line. And it wouldn't be for CJ. I think it would be for Randall Leal. And that's what we saw from just kind of the tidbits of lineups that got published by the club at that time, that it was Hani and Ake Loba sitting in behind CJ Sapong. So I think that would be what you would expect to see if Loba did get a start. As far as this one with Dallas, if I'm betting on it, I don't think Gary changes anything. He's usually one that kind of sticks with the plan as long as it's working. But at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me if we went back to the 3 center back look from last year. Dallas has got some good attacking pieces. They've got some speed on the wing, so that can trouble you. They had quite a few good attacking opportunities against Toronto in that first game at home. They were really unlucky to come away with the draw on that one. I was really impressed with what Ariola and O'Brien were able to do, Ferrer as well at the top of that attacking trio. So if you want to kind of deal with them in a different way, 3 center backs may be the way to do it. But I mean, until proven differently, I don't think we're seeing Ake Loba in the starting lineup.
Chris, you are the bet guy from Broadway Sports and Speedway Soccer now. What's the line looking like this weekend? And is it just 1-1 draw away? I mean, is that like the smart bet?
I mean, it's Nashville. That's always the smart bet at this point. I think it's Dallas is at like plus 140, Nashville's at plus 185, and it's like a plus 220 on a draw. So yeah, the smart money there is on a draw. Whether or not we can kind of get into predictions for all three of us later whether we see Nashville winning this one. But I mean, as many times as Nashville went on the road and drew last year, it's always going to be the smart play.
Well, let's go ahead and do it. We'll move to some CONCACAF Champions League, and I'll maybe do a little requiem for Chelsea here in a minute.
Can we talk Pep Guardiola too?
Yeah, we can do that because that pissed me off a little bit earlier. Yeah, we'll do that. I like that. Okay, Slape, let's start with you. Predictions, Nashville at Dallas.
I'm going to go 2-0. 2-0 Nashville. Win on the road. I'm not convinced by this Dallas team. I mean, it is a little hard to gauge the level, but the fact that they only scored one against Toronto at home after Toronto just got absolutely boat raced against Red Bulls last week, that gives me a good idea of kind of the level in this first part of the season. So yeah, I'm going to go 2-0 Nashville.
Chris, what do you got?
I've been kind of going back and forth between a 1-1 draw or a 2-1 win Nashville. The one good thing for Nashville in this game is that obviously it's the much talked about thing that they concede goals on set pieces. Well, the good news coming into this week is that last year Dallas had, I think, the 4th or 5th fewest set piece goals in all of MLS. So you've got to like our chances of not conceding a goal if we're not going to bleed one off of a set piece.
Yeah, there's not a lot of height in this Dallas team. And so, I mean, if you look through that entire team, maybe at the center back positions, but there's just not a lot of height. And so I think Nashville should have that advantage.
So you just talked me into it, Chris. I was going to say 2-1 win. I'm going to go 2-0, like Slape said. I was leaning towards a win either way, and I was thinking they'll probably end up giving up a set-piece goal, but I think they'll grab 2. I'll go with 2-0. I like it. I like the idea of the lack of set-piece goals out of Dallas, lack of height, and I might throw a little bit on that this weekend. Guys, that'll put a pin in Nashville SC talk for the night. A few things around the league. Charlotte, CTL. I can't do it. I can't say it. Charlotte FC goes and makes their debut at home. 74,000 and some change, almost 75,000 people there. Chris, you were in the house. Tell us what it was like, man.
It was an amazing experience. So I was out the entire day out with friends, and even neighborhood people had Charlotte jerseys. Charlotte for a few Carolina Panthers NFL games, and honestly, people didn't turn up like they did for this Charlotte FC game. It was an all-day party and it really felt like something special, and there was this kind of buzz within the city as well. It was a really unique experience for any sort of MLS game that I've ever been. As much as we also look back on Nashville's first. I honestly saw, a lot more out of Charlotte, even, which is kind of hard to believe. It's really hard to overestimate just the city was and how much they were ready for a good time.
That's great to hear. I mean, I think it's very easy to get cynical. You see a lot of Twitter chatter and complaining about, well, can they keep doing it? Are they playing in an NFL stadium? All that kind of stuff. But it's good to see, man. I just think in the South, especially, it's good to see these franchises do well. Atlanta, Charlotte, Nashville now. Hope to see something similar out of St. Louis next year in their stadium. Slape, they've got trouble, though, on the roster build side. When your coach is apparently having leaks saying, I'm not sure how long I can keep this up after 2 game weeks. You've got some issues. Looked like they maybe went the Miami-Cincinnati route, not totally understanding the roster mechanisms and the way things worked. Your thoughts on what they've got going on there long term?
I mean, they heavily over-indexed on international spots, and to the benefit of Nashville, I mean, they spent $750,000 on international spots, and we've seen in this league when you get these GMs that come in from overseas, a lot of times they underestimate the value of the MLS player and they overestimate bringing in the international players. So I mean, there's a lot of concerns as far as who this roster as a whole. I'm not really convinced. I know you said it isn't, levels of, FC Cincinnati bad. I think it definitely could be, because that the Cincinnati, like there's the argument of like they had a very short run up. This team got an additional year to put together this roster. So as great as it was to see everyone show up and pack out that stadium, I really worry for the fans and the long term, like not a long term, but more the short term success of people coming back if this team is bad. Um, you never want to see a team fail, but they have a lot to do. Um, going in through the rest of this year, we'll see maybe what they're able to put together. As far as summer signings, but I don't really have a whole lot of good to say about this team other than they actually looked pretty good the other night, but I think the energy of the crowd was really keeping them in it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the adrenaline was pretty high there for Charlotte. CONCACAF Champions League. I think MLS goes 3-1 in the first round. Is that right, Slape?
Yeah, so 3-1. So we're at the quarterfinals of the CONCACAF Champions League. So New York picking up a 3-1 win at home in Hartford. Absolute joke of the league. Seattle Sounders 3-0 over Leon, and New England 3-0 at home to Puma. So those three that were at home, so they go on the road for the second leg. Montreal was the sole MLS team to lose, but it's a 1-0 loss on the road to Cruz Azul at the Azteca. So, I mean, they have plenty of opportunity to come back as they go back to Canada. And so, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, is this the year that MLS is going to finally win CCL and get that coveted Club World Cup berth? It's looking pretty good at this point, because even if Montreal gets knocked out, I mean, between New York, Seattle, New England, I like any of their chances against a Cruz Azul team who, has been very good, but I think is vulnerable. There's just of course the you do have to go to Azteca.
Yeah, that's the other part for sure. Still, that's good performances. 2-goal lead, 2 3-goal leads, and then only one down coming back home. So that's good position for the MLS sides heading out. Guys, let's end it on this note. A little bit of go ahead, Slape. Sorry, I think you had something.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to touch on with the Mexican with Liga MX is, of course, what happened in the Atlas Querétaro match over the weekend. Just absolutely terrible scenes. I would not suggest anyone to go find the video, but just some absolutely terrible scenes of fan violence, and again, just no one should ever have to go to a soccer game and worry about not coming home. But again, so I know Chris, you're gonna add something as well.
Yeah, I mean, like Slape saying, absolutely horrific. Don't go on Twitter and look at the photos and videos; that they will stick with you. The one thing I kind of wanted to add here was that, I mean, it kind of brings up some concerns. Their MLS and Liga MX are certainly increasing the ties between the two leagues. We have the expanded Leagues Cup that's going to start next year, where both leagues clear out their entire August schedule to play a tournament together. The violence in scenes are one thing. The thing that gives me bigger concern, I think, is this kind of almost cover up of the fact that there weren't any reported fatalities. When, if you saw any of those videos, if you saw any of those photos, and you've seen some of the reports from just people who were there were obviously multiple fatalities. So it gives you some positive, what's the security situation and what can we expect going forward between these two leagues?
Yeah, and then the last thing, like the cover up piece, I think Pablo Mar and I think Paul Tenorio and a few of the Athletic guys have gone down to Querétaro. So I'll be really interested to see what comes out of their reporting, because we've seen what the Athletics investigative journalism side has done in some of the American soccer areas with things that have happened with multiple times with the Timbers, with the Thorns, some of the Vancouver Whitecap stuff. So I'm going to be really interested, and I would, challenge everyone, if you don't have a subscription with The Athletic, there's enough ways to get that for pretty damn cheap. And so definitely check that out, because I'm sure they'll have some great reporting out of that.
Yeah, I think you guys have kind of nailed it. The only thing I'll add there is we saw some fighting or just this week between, I think, West Ham and Sevilla fans, or maybe it was Valencia, the Europa League.
West Ham, Sevilla.
There you go. Yeah, West Ham, Sevilla. So I don't want anybody to take us to be thinking this is like a strictly Central American problem or something like that. But it's just such an acute example that we don't see all the time. It happens everywhere, that ultra culture is accepted. Turkey, Italy, England, all over the place. Where you've seen things like with NYCFC's fan base. Chris just said in the chat there was a pretty nasty fight in the Charlotte deck. So don't take us wrong. We're not saying anything like that. Mexico's got it. That being said, there are concerns when you're talking about potential merger of these two leagues. There's a certain level of gravity there that I think MLS really has to put its hands around and kind of get sorted out. Chris, I know you went in pretty hard on my Chelsea Football Club last week, which I don't blame you for. I don't begrudge anybody for it. Sanctions were announced this morning. I am not going to say that was luck of the draw, that on Chelsea's anniversary of being founded, these sanctions were announced. A little bit too poetic in my personal opinion. Thanks, Andy, for that. Appreciate it greatly. I think here's what I'll say, because I am the resident Chelsea fan. I'll say this first and foremost. Any of the Chelsea fans out there trying to compare this to other things that are going on, talking about what governments have done and blah, just stop, okay? Like, you knew what this was when the guy bought the club. And if you didn't know this, that I think, 14 when Roman Abramovich bought this club. So if I knew at 14 what was going on, I think you probably should have as well. If you're older than me, if you're younger than me, I'll give you some slack there. I think maybe the most successful 20-year period of most clubs in most sports that you've ever seen. There's probably a few Yankees decades that compare, Real Madrid, Manchester United, a few other things that are like it. Just an outstanding 20 years from a sporting perspective, but this is the price you pay when that's kind of what happens. And I think what will be interesting is, first, what Roman does next. He said a lot, hey, I'm putting the club first. All I care about is the club. I don't want to damage the club. If that's the truth, I think he'll probably just say, I accept these sanctions, hand the club over to the country, and let them manage the sale and let everything move forward. If he tries to take this to CAS and escalate it, then I'm going to become a little bit concerned, because I think that's when the sanctions will really start to affect the day-to-day operations of the club. I think right now, if Roman pulls his hand back, I don't think they're going to – look, at the end of the day, no matter which way you want to cut this, Chelsea employs 1,500 British citizens in the area of London, and already several hundred have been laid off. That's the people who are being affected right now. It's not just Roman Abramovich. So – I'm interested to see what he does next with that. From there, look, I think if you are just a Chelsea fan, you take the trophies and you just, whatever happens next, happens next. If it's the guy from the Dodgers, apparently there's some Saudi ownership, which it seems a little bit odd to me that is accepted when other things aren't. It's just somewhat interesting. I mean, there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down. If this leads to an overall repugnation of certain types of activities and ownership groups, which I think is what Chris was touching on last week, the idea of sports washing, I think that's great. The fact that this happens on the heels of just a few months ago of the Saudi state, which we are absolutely certain have created human rights have participated in human rights violations and a lot of shady stuff. I struggle with it just a little bit. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know. I don't really have a ton of issue with what they did. I don't really have a ton of issue with the punishment. I have issue with people who are trying to act like it wasn't a big deal what Roman did. So go ahead, Slape.
Yes, I having some camera issues, but I will say that speaking of sports washing, I do want to touch on a little bit on Pep Guardiola's comments today. For anyone that did not see the pre-match press conference leading up to their match on the weekend, he basically said that coaches like Thomas Tuchel need to pay attention and do their research on who their owners are. To which I would say, did you not do your fucking research, Pep, about who your owners are? Because if there is one of the main ownership groups that is, sports washing, it is the UAE ownership of Manchester City. And if Pep wants to, I feel like he tries to advocate for things like Catalan independence, and some of the things he wants to stand for, which I do support. You can't go out and say things to a manager like you should look and see look at who your ownership group is, because at that point it's really a situation of throwing rocks at glass houses.
Chris, you got any thoughts?
No, I'm with you guys as well. I think it's a good time for sport to kind of look at who is in ownership and who's given stewardship over these clubs that will far outlast their ownership of it and far outlast their lives on this earth. Whether it be something like Germany's 50+1 model or anything with just more stringent standards, I think we would all benefit as fans if we didn't have to sit here and question, what's the moral decision to support this club.
Yeah, and so I was listening to a podcast today with Roy Smith, and he was talking, a lot about these instances about, what happens after Roman Abramovich, but also looking at the wider view of what happens to these clubs when they are no longer useful, because you can't argue that, the Saudi government does not have a use. Like, they have a use for Newcastle, Qatar, and PSG. I mean, that has been a huge cornerstone of the lead up to the 2022 World Cup. So after 2022, do they have a use for PSG? At what point does Sheikh Mansour say that, it's not worth it for me in Manchester City? So, I mean, I think kind of tying this back to Roman Abramovich was, this was almost, I feel like in some sense, like his validation and lifeline, both inside of Britain, it put him in a stature within British society, but also I feel like provided him a bit of a safety net with inside of Russia, just based on, his global notoriety. Because I mean, I feel like outside of America, if you, went to England and asked about oligarchs, the first person everyone's going to know is Roman Abramovich. And so,
well, look, let's not get it twisted either here. The National Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. wrote a letter to the United States government asking for no sanctions against Roman Abramovich because he is their number one donor by tens of millions of dollars annually. So it's not just Chelsea fans out there saying, hey, we shouldn't crack down on this guy. He's actually done a lot of good. It's literally the Holocaust Museum in the United States of America. So these are really complicated issues with guys who have incomprehensible amounts of money that are doing a lot of things, some of it good, some of it bad. Again, not just a Europe problem, not just a Russia problem. You've got the revelations today that Mayor Paulson was possibly sending people out to try to make deals about their issues going on. We've got Dan Snyder. You've had owners of the Clippers have to sell. Owners of the Panthers had to sell. Chris was just talking about Charlotte. It's just like it's about like too much power in certain hands and what goes wrong. And I agree. I think Roman is near the top of that list of damage that individuals have caused. And so Slape, who's the guy at Everton? I can never remember his name.
So there's Usmanov is he's tied to Mashiri, who's the main owner. And if I don't know if anyone saw that came out this week, a lot of the financials for Everton have come out where they've posted a massive loss, and there's actually the possibility of points deductions for Everton, who find themselves already precariously positioned, just based on the amount of losses. And it'll just be interesting because Usmanov has been very closely tied to Mashiri for decades and is very much involved in the Bramley-Moore Dock Stadium in Liverpool. So it'll be very interesting. We've seen these sanctions against Roman Abramovich. What is coming for a guy like Usmanov and just the rest of the oligarchs within football.
This is just the beginning. That's what we know for sure. There'll be a lot to learn. We'll try to keep you as updated as we can. Obviously, I have an interest in Chelsea, so I'll bring that up as often as I can in the context of the right show. So, guys, I think that's it for the night. I think we've hit all the topics. We'll be back early next week with the Nashville Soccer Show to recap the match against Dallas, and then back at the end of next week to do another Speedway Soccer. If you've listened tonight or listen whenever you get this podcast, thanks for bearing with me. I am recovering just a bit. Slape brings up the coyote tattoo. That's something we're talking about doing. We're going to put our money where our mouth is, I think, on how much we back the Yotes and the idea of the Yote. And so just a working project, the coyote tattoo. We'll keep you updated on that one here in the near
We'll put it out
future.
definitely for content.
Yes, for content. Absolutely.
Davey approached me and asked my thoughts, and I was like, yes. Do you want to get a coyote tattoo? And for those that have seen me, that's not something. I'll just go ahead and get a tattoo. And then Andy got a little upset that he was not asked to participate as well.
Right. All right, guys, I appreciate it. Chris Slape, thanks for doing it. It's Chris Ivy 865 and J Slape SSP. I'm Davey Shepard at Davey T Shep on Twitter. Thanks for hanging with us tonight. We'll see you soon next week. Have a good one, and up the Yotes, guys. Take it easy.
Never go full shepherd.
Nope.